Part 206. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2052. The prince nodded, turned to leave, remembered something, and asked, "How many ranks is Bai Shan in now?" Several examiners looked at each other and said, "Your Highness, the current affairs policy has not been approved, so there is no ranking yet." "Find out his papers," the prince frowned after a pause. "Take out Bai Cheng's too." So everyone had to work together to find out the papers of the two of them. Fortunately, they were not anonymous in the exam, and both of Bai Shan's papers were temporarily set to be on the list, so it was still easy to find. It took Bai Cheng some time. After reading Bai Shan's study of the classics, the prince felt a little dizzy, so he simply handed the paper to Kong Jiju. "How do you think your answer is, sir?" Kong Jiju had seen it before, but this time, he just watched it again. He stroked his beard approvingly and said, "That's right, it's just that the current affairs are a little worse, but the name should be able to make it into the top 10. Some people objected, "He is ranked 18th on the general list, sir, the places for the four below the champion have all been set." Kong Jiju just remembered this, frowned and said, "After all, the list is a list, or it should be based on articles. It's just about articles. Everyone has read their papers. Didn't they agree with them before? This imperial examination is just a paper, and it is biased to judge only based on this. The line scrolls can better reflect their talents." The prince asked, "Is there no paperwork for Bai Shan?" "Yes," Kong Jiju said, "everyone is on the list based on their deeds." "What is a pass?" Before the exam, the examiners go to the society to investigate the talent and reputation of the candidates, and then make a list based on the comprehensive consideration of the quality of the test papers they submit. This list is called the pass list. After the Jinchi examination paper is graded, the examiners will refer to the general list to determine the name, and some have already decided the top few places before the examination even begins. Therefore, some candidates will spend a lot of money in order to gain fame, and it is very little to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. The prince asked to see their current affairs strategy for the top 10 on the list. After reading it, he picked out 2 copies and threw them aside, and said with a sullen face, "I won't talk about the other orphans, these 2 talents are not suitable." The examiners went to look at the 2 papers. Among them, Dr. Taixue, who recommended a candidate, said, "His Royal Highness might as well take a look at his papers. He is very talented, and his poems and essays are like flowing water." The prince glanced at him and said, "I only know that his article is not as good as Bai Cheng's. This is a Jinchi examination. If you only look at the examination paper, what else is there to take the examination? Wouldn't it be better to just go through the list and name it?" He sneered and said, "I don't need to talk about how much water is on the list. Jin's hike is only for talent, and it is only for people with insight, not those who are rich and famous." Kong Jiju did not express any objection, and the others could only hold back even if they were dissatisfied. After the prince had a seizure, he turned around and left. Kong Jiju stayed behind and smiled to appease the examiners, and then went out. The prince stood waiting outside the Court of Rights. Kong Jiju stepped forward and saluted and sighed, "If your highness wants to take more sectarians from the poor family, then you have to cancel the list, and the name of the paper will be changed. It will be fair." The prince frowned and said, "The Gu and His Majesty mentioned it before, but His Majesty said that it would take 5 years for the first emperor to set the regular examinations, and there were several years in between. In these years, each family often wrote to His Majesty to open the system, and each family also made inspections. Talents come to Beijing, and if we are here to remove people from the list and lose their names, I am afraid it will be even more noisy." The prince himself is not afraid of making trouble, but he thinks that his father may not like making trouble at the moment. Over the years, the emperor has become more and more stable and is unwilling to have more disputes. Kong Jiju obviously knew this. He glanced at the prince, nodded slightly, and was persuaded. He didn't know whether the emperor was seeking stability, but he knew that the emperor obviously wanted to leave this matter to the prince, and the prince would be able to stand up. However, the emperor looked at the peak of the spring and autumn period, and the crown prince did not know when he would be able to take this matter to the fore. Kong Jiju sent the prince out before going back to continue grading the papers. Then the examiner took the paper and asked, "Sir, this paper?" Kong Jiju said lightly, "The list is just for reference, you should look at the exam papers this time." But Kong Jiju didn't wait for him to finish. He took out two papers from the side and put them on the grade beside him, and said to him, "These two papers are not bad, let's go back and order together." Everyone went to look at the place of origin and names on the paper, and found that they had never heard of it. They thought about it for a long time in their minds and couldn't remember who these two were. I can only reach out and pick up the paper to look at it. Well, this paper has an impression, and the poems are a little worse, but the classics and current affairs are still well written, but I don't know who it is, and I don't know who it is. Mainly I don't know what the prestige is. Everyone wants to object. Kong Jiju has already said, in the past 2 years, most of the places in the Jinchi examination have come from the pass list, and almost all of the pass list are students. No Xianggong has been selected for the recent 2 Jinchi examinations, right? If things go on like this, I'm afraid it will be civil scholars are dissatisfied. A doctor of Kuazixu objected, after all, there are a small number of civil scholars, and all scholars of the same age are admitted to the county school, the prefectural school and the Kuazijian, and there are still many apprentices. Kong Jiju shook his head slightly. Why don't you eat minced meat? There are many students in this world who can't afford to go to official schools. They can't be prejudiced just because they are not students. The official school can still be reduced or exempted, and the cost of private school is more expensive. If you can afford private school, why can't you go to official school? Of course there are private tutors from father and brother, Kong Jiju said. Dr. Yan should go to the local area. Since the Jinchi has passed the examination paper, it should be mainly based on the examination paper, and only the content of the examination paper should be used for evaluation. Are 2 papers okay? So everyone talks about the quality of the article. It is really hard to find the fault of an article. This article has no first place. If someone has the heart to find fault, there are many ways. After arguing for a long time, everyone reluctantly agreed that the 2 papers should be placed in the first class first. It had been 5 days after they had approved the papers, and after 5 days of approval, they had also quarreled for 5 days. Fortunately, Kong Jiju was very prestigious, and he was able to hold people down, so he didn't delay grading the papers during the quarrel. 32 Jinchi were scheduled to be selected this year, so the obviously bad papers were thrown into the bamboo basket on the side, and only a few could be put on the table. The papers on the table are also divided into 2 types, the ones on the left are sure to be good and can be taken, and those on the right are pending. To be determined, either the test papers are not bad, or the candidates themselves are very famous, and they may be on the general list, and their reputation and test papers are not bad. In the end, everyone selected 32 of the more than 60 papers left to decide the product. Everyone fought for a day, and finally the 36 papers were finalized. Kong Jiju sent the quota and papers to the palace for the emperor to see, and he would choose. See you at 6 p.m. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2053. It's just that the Ministry of Rights has already determined the ranking, and showing it to the emperor is just for him to take a final look. If there is no problem, it will be decided. In the past, the emperor had no objection, but this time, the crown prince was considered to be half the chief examiner. He went into the palace and talked to him for a while, saying that some examiners of the Ministry of Rights ordered the order directly according to the general list, and the emperor was a little unhappy. Therefore, when Kong Jiju sent the papers and the list, the emperor looked at them carefully. He went through the list first, and found that Bai Shan, his consort Bai Cheng, and Wei Yu were all there, and only then did he read the papers. The emperor took it very seriously, and read the 36 papers from the beginning to the end according to the ranking. Among them, there were 4 to be selected. Because of the inspection by Kong Jiju and several doctors, the attached 4 papers were all famous. It is not known, but the papers are written well by candidates. In order to read the papers, the emperor put all other political affairs on hold, and all the officials who came to report the matter were called in by him to sit in a row with Kong Jiju, and the papers he read were passed down for them to read. After reading the 36 papers, their eyes would be dazzled, so the emperor ordered a meal, and talked about the list with his beloved ministers while eating. The emperor hadn't seen the exam papers of these candidates, but he had seen it early in the morning. Although he wanted to hand over the reform of the imperial examination system to the crown prince, so that he could stand out, but he didn't want to be fooled by it now. So while eating, he asked Wei Ji and others for their opinions on a few papers. Li Shangshu is not good at expressing his opinions on this kind of thing, mainly because he is a minister of the Ministry of War who is not good at speaking about the study of classics. He can say something about current affairs, but... He glanced at Lu Shangshu on the side. It was almost the end of the year. After the new year, the allocation of the Ministry of War had to be calculated. He decided not to trouble Lu Shangshu this year, and only hoped that he would not trouble him either. Therefore, Li Shangshu bowed his head to eat and did not express his opinion. But Wei Ji can't do it. Even if his son is taking the Jinshi examination this year, he is not a person who avoids relatives, so seeing that other people didn't want to say anything, he simply commented on it. He didn't say that he had set 30 which of the 2 places is not good, but the 2 articles that were put in for selection are particularly good. 36 articles, from poetry to classical studies and current affairs policy, are all glued together. Poetry and poetry are clear at a glance, and classical studies are almost fixed answers. He said it very well, and naturally it is current affairs policy. Wei Ji thought it was a pity that someone with such talent was dropped. The emperor thought so too. He was about to speak when he heard someone say, "If you have fallen on the Jinshi list, you can go to the Mingjing." The emperor choked in one breath and turned to look at the speaker. Wei Ji didn't get choked, but sprayed it back directly. "Is this Jinshi list the same as the Mingjing list? Why doesn't Master Han want to let his children study the Mingjing?" Han Shangshu choked and said, "I didn't say this, it was the doctor of the Imperial College." Kong Jiju was sitting across the bank watching the fire, and the fire suddenly burned himself. He simply asked Han Shangshu directly, "Which doctor said that?" Han Shangshu stopped talking, but he could quietly tell Kong Jiju in private, saying in front of everyone that he seemed like a villain. The emperor swallowed the choked breath and waved his hand. "Okay, let's pass this question first. Since the exam paper is out, it should still be the exam paper." He directly picked out 2 exam papers and said, "Let's lose these 2. Everyone took a look and found that one was Chen Wenhai from Tangzhou and the other was Nai Xiu from Luzhu. They were all disciples of Quazijian. All the people present except the emperor had read their scrolls, and they thought it was pretty good at the time. Lu Shangshu simply turned his head and asked Kong Jiju, "How did they do in the Imperial College? Since it can be in the top 20 on the general list, it is prestige, and the results should not be bad." Wei Ji asked, "Is their paperwork done during school, or did they do it themselves?" Kong Jiju paused and said, "There are all of them, but there is more to do." Wei Ji snorted, "As the exam is approaching, the current affairs policy topics published by the Quazijian are very comprehensive. I remember that Bai Shan's booklet was selected from the coursework he had done and put it in a booklet. The 2 of them are really interested, and they have thought about other topics themselves, and they are so close to the government, whether they really have an opinion or something else is unknown. Although Kong Jiju also felt that the two of them did not do well in this paper, he did not allow others to maliciously speculate on his students without evidence, so he countered, "Master Wei thinks people too badly. If you don't have evidence, please speak carefully. If you have evidence, you can bring it to our country's Zijian to appeal." Seeing that the two Ikings were about to quarrel, and they were the two most eloquent Ikings, the emperor hurriedly made peace. Weking is also worried about raising the virtuous, and Mr. Kong will forgive him. He also knew about Wei. Wei Qing speaks carefully, it is not easy to talk about it without any basis. Wei Ji apologized at the right time, Kong Jiju snorted, and the matter was temporarily revealed. The emperor turned the topic back again, change these two papers, and discuss the ranking with you. Kong Jiju saw that the two people selected by the emperor were students of his imperial college, so he simply selected another from the remaining two candidate papers and said, "Your Majesty, this minister thinks this paper is also very good, which is on a par with these two." The emperor glanced at it and saw that they were not equal to each other. Although they did a good job, they were still close to the two. Looking at the name, it is also unknown, and looking at the birthplace is a student from Yangzhou Fuxiu. I can't let him replace one of the two, and Kong Jiju said that they are not equal to each other, so how to choose? The emperor and Kong Jiju looked at each other, and immediately understood what he meant. This old thing is to let him pick another person from the established quota, and he can no longer be a member of the imperial college. Emperor. Wei Ji glanced at the paper, refreshed, and then suggested, "Your Majesty, do you want to take another look at Bai Cheng's paper?" Emperor. Bai Cheng has already been assigned to number 32. His future father-in-law didn't even think about moving forward, but you still want to fall behind? Seeing that the emperor didn't speak, Wei Ji said more cautiously, "Your Majesty, Bai Cheng is still young and not as good as the weak crown. It's still too early for him to go to office at this time. He has passed the Jinshi examination, is he going to be released?" That was out of the emperor's eyes, and it would be hard to control this person if he was outside. The emperor pondered, but he wasn't worried that Bai Cheng had other thoughts after he was released. Chen Wenhai and Naixiu can occupy the top 20 on the list, which shows the strength of the foreign ambassadors. It would be really bad if they were alone, but if he added his son-in-law. For the stability and unity of the court, the emperor closed his eyes and picked out Bai Cheng's papers and put them aside. See you at 9. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2054. Kong Jiju and Wei Ji were satisfied at first sight. Bai Cheng's poems and classics were indeed okay, but current affairs. Really serious ranking, he was a little reluctant to even make it into the top 50. If it wasn't for him having a little fame outside, doing a good job in the previous scrolls, and being the consort of the princess, everyone wouldn't put him on the list. Woolen cloth. Half of this is for the emperor's face, and the other half is for passing the list, but since the emperor himself replaced it, there is no such thing as a face problem. Wei Ji felt that the Jinshi examination this time was a little fair, so he touched his beard and didn't care much about the ranking of the places. Kong Jiju was actually a little dissatisfied in his heart, because Bai Cheng was also his student. Although he belonged to the Chongguan Museum, it was not considered the face of the Quazijian. But, still a little unhappy in my heart. But forget it, 2 of the imperial prisons fell, and 1 of the emperor's son-in-law fell, so it's barely even. So the matter was settled. Kong Jiju took the papers and the list and left, and went back to arrange the names. It's just that the second place in the champion list and the third flower are still decided by the emperor. He didn't move the top 3, but changed the second place to the first place. Kong Jiju had no objection, so the top 3 were decided. The next morning the Ministry of Rights released the list. The students all ran to see the list. Manbao had a class at the Imperial Physician office today, so she left the palace early in the morning. She asked the maid to take a detour, and deliberately bypassed the etiquette department. The imperial city is usually full of office workers, very solemn, but today it is extraordinarily lively. The list was not posted on the Kuazijian school, but on the notice wall outside the Ministry of Rights. Bai Shan and the others have been at home for the past few days because they have to take the exam and wait for the results. They entered the imperial city early this morning to read the list, and when they saw Manbao's car from afar, they waved fiercely. Manbao jumped out of the car and rushed over to join them. He stood on tiptoe, glanced ahead, and asked, "Did you post it?" "Not yet," Bai Shan said. "Wait." As soon as the voice fell, the door of the Ministry of Rights opened, and the Minister of Rights and Kong Jiju came out together. Kong Jiju took out a piece of yellow silk from his sleeve, and after opening it, he thanked the emperor for a moment, and then said that this time he took a total of 32 scholars in the Jinshi examination. Now he starts to read the list of admitted candidates, starting from the 32nd read forward. 32nd, Tongzhou Cao Ziming. Cao Ziming in the crowd was stunned for a while and then exclaimed in surprise, it's me, I'm hit. Kong Jiju smiled slightly, didn't mind his yelling, and continued to read. Bai Erlang was already mentally prepared, and when he read the 20th place, he decided to say to Bai Shanmanbao, I didn't win. He turned his head and glanced at his eldest brother, hesitatingly said, Brother, you may not have been hit. Baiji. He said angrily, I don't need you to tell me. He glanced at Bai Shan, now we'll see if cousin Shan has won. Bai Shan shook his head, I've already read the 20th place, so I probably won't get it if I wrote it down. But you are in the 18th place on the list, unlike me and Erlang who are out of the 30th place, and you have a great reputation, and you have done a good job in the book. Baiji hesitated for a while, but still lowered his voice, I have asked my classmates who took the same exam, and they all said that this year's Jinshi exam questions are difficult, and many people can't write it down after only one start, so you may not be rejected. In truth, he and Erlang wrote a lot, but in fact, he came with a little bit of luck. But listening to the 12th place and there are no brothers and sisters, it must be gone. The thought flashed by, he was stunned, hey, all 12. Bai Shan had also determined that he did not have his own name, so he heard Kong Jiju recite, the 9th place, Longzhou Bai Shan. Bai Shan was stunned for a moment, and was instantly surprised. He turned around and grabbed Manbao's hand, his eyes flashing, I've been hit. Manbao also nodded in surprise, yes, you've won. The candidates who heard the movement in the vicinity immediately turned their heads and raised their hands in congratulations, and when they saw Bai Shan was so young, they were instantly envious. Are there students from several schools in Kuazijian who haven't seen Bai Shan? They can't help but read his place of origin and name, and immediately think of it, could it be the son of Yazhumu Baki, who defends his father's injustice and is not afraid of power? Young Master Bai Shan from Zhou. Bai Shan hurriedly said a few words of modesty, and the candidates who thought he was a little too young had no problem. The name Bai Shan has spread all over the country in the past 2 years, not only because of his filial piety, but also because of his character and talent. Everyone knows that he is now the prince's companion, and he is very valued by the emperor. Every time Shang Mianju chanted a name, one person claimed it, and then the people around him congratulated him. Even the older uncles couldn't hold back this vanity and happily accepted everyone's congratulations. The 2nd place and the champion were quickly named. The 3 of them are not young anymore, and they all have mustaches. With the eyesight of Manbao, the 3 of them passed by. The youngest should be the 2nd place with a lot of acne on his face. After Kong Jiju finished reading the imperial list, he turned around and took out 2 red papers with the Minister of Rights and stuck them on the notice wall for them to see for themselves. Bai Shan and the others squeezed in and took a look at their names. They saw Bai Shan's 2 big black marks written on the red paper, and then they squeezed out with satisfaction, holding hands excitedly to celebrate. Bai Shan has already said, Yin or he is too crowded, so he is waiting for us outside the Imperial City. I will invite you to the Zhuangyuan building for dinner later. Man Bao nodded fiercely, okay, okay. The 2 of them ran out holding hands. 4th eunuch Rong pulled the carriage and managed to avoid the people and came here. Seeing them running away, he immediately dragged the carriage to chase after them and shouted, Lord Zhou Xiao, you have to go. Class. Man Bao and the others didn't hear it, and ran forward in a hurry. Daji, who was leading the horse, heard it, and he and the guards led the horse to silently chase after Bai Shan and the others. There are too many people watching the list, not only the candidates themselves, but also the candidates' families and servants, as well as other people who came to watch the fun, and even some tea doctors from tea houses and restaurants also sneaked into the Imperial City to watch the list for news. Just to get first-hand information. So in this section, you can't ride a horse at all. Everyone can only lead the horse and pull the cart to chase people. When they arrived at the gate of the Imperial City, they saw that they had already climbed into Yin Or's carriage with excited faces, and were eager to go to the restaurant for dinner. 4th eunuch Rong was sweating profusely and climbed into the carriage, fearing that they would just leave like this. He immediately shouted to let the people in front make way, and then rushed forward to catch up to stop the carriage of the Yin family, shouting in disbelief, Zhou Xiao my lord, you still have to go to the Imperial Physician's office for classes. See you tomorrow. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2055. Man Bao opened the curtain and climbed out in a daze. She silently exchanged glances with Bai Shan and the others, and then she remembered that she hadn't rested yet and had to go to class today. Man Bao climbed off the Yin family's carriage, climbed into the carriage in the palace, and then turned to look at Bai Shan, who was separated by a carriage from her. Bai Shan felt sorry and wanted to laugh, so he could only hold back his smile and said, Don't worry, I'll have someone bring you meals from the Zhuangyuan building at noon. Man Bao reluctantly felt a little better. You remember to order a big meatball for me, I want to eat big meatballs. Bai Shan responded with a smile, I'll order you a sweet and sour fish. The sadness in Man Bao's heart disappeared. It was all she liked to eat. 4th eunuch Rong looked at the time, it would be too late if they didn't leave, so with a flick of the whip, the carriage ran quickly. Man Bao just jumped out of the car, and saw Imperial Physician Xiao and others standing at the door leisurely with their hands in their sleeves. Seeing Man Bao, he smiled and congratulated, I heard that Mr. Bai Xiaolang has fallen in love. Man Bao was surprised, how do you know? She went to see the list in person, and only then did she know that it would not be long. Imperial Dr. Xiao pointed to the servant next to him and said cheerfully, they went to see it early in the morning, and came back after hearing the list. Even if they ran faster, Imperial Dr. Zhou was riding a carriage. It's no wonder that when they squeezed in to watch the red list, they felt that there were so many people, and when they ran out, they also felt that there were too many people running around on the road. It turned out that they were all people. Man Bao went in with the medicine box and said, there are too many people on the road, and there is a traffic jam. Imperial Physician Xiao and the others happily said that it's better to block it. After today, Bai Xiaolang Jun will finally make a name for himself. He asked again, would the Bai family have a few tables of wine? Don't forget me to wait for the treat when the time comes. Man Bao pondered, this matter is really important, I have to ask Grandma Lu when I go back. Mrs. Lu was indeed very happy. She walked around the house 3 times and took her daughter-in-law to the ancestral tablet to pay her respects. But after the excitement, she quickly calmed down, and when Bai Shan came back, She called him, invited Mr. Zhuang to come, and then asked Bai Shan in front of Mr. Zhuang, "What are your plans?" Next, there are the examinations for the Ministry of Rights and the Ministry of Personnel, and then there is the queue to wait for an official. Your ranking is not low. If you are an official, you can be awarded an official in Beijing even if you are not released. Start from a young age. After thinking for a while, Bai Shan said, "Grandmother, I'm still young, and it's too early for me to go to work. To be honest, my current affairs strategy is not good this time. I'm confused myself. I don't know whether I was selected really the paper did a good job, or because of the previous reputation and line. If the latter, he will be guilty, if the former, he will be heartbroken. Heartache that this year's candidates are so bad. But no matter what kind, he knows his own abilities, and he is still a long way from becoming an official. Even if he can pass the examination of the Ministry of Rights, it will not be easy for the Ministry of Personnel. He doesn't want to be a phoenix, so he wants to study for a few more years. Grandmother, I want to go out to study for a while." Madame Lu was already mentally prepared. She sighed and asked, "Where do you want to study abroad?" Bai Shan didn't speak for a while, just looked at Mr. Zhuang. Mrs. Lu also glanced at Mr. Zhuang, and then said, "Man Bao is still in the hospital, will she be with you too?" Bai Shan nodded. "Then what about her official? Let's not talk about her current job field, but say that His Majesty is willing to let him go. Resignation is not something you can just say. What if you resign 3 times in a row and don't let the emperor go? Hanging out? It's not impossible, but the emperor will definitely be angry at that time, and there will definitely be some twists and turns when Manbao wants to go to work in the future. Bai Shandao, it's winter now, even going on a study tour will be a matter of next year, and we'll talk about it next year." However, Mr. Zhuang said, "Since you want to resign to study abroad, you should start planning now. Even if you can't officially resign, you should make some side effects to prepare people psychologically. Also, if you want to go to Jiaokang, there are some roads on the way. Things have to be prepared." Madame Lu couldn't help exclaiming, "Gao Chang." She turned her head to look at Bai Shan and stared, "Are you going to Jiaokang?" Bai Shan nodded bravely, "Grandmother, we want to see the customs of the western regions." Mrs. Lu frowned. "The Central Plains, Jiangnan, and even the Lingnan area of Jianese Road are all good. Dajin has a vast territory. You can't go anywhere, so why do you have to go to Jiaokang? There was a war there only a few years ago." Bai Shandao, "Grandmother, the imperial court does not have strong control over the grasslands and the western regions. We want to go and see. In the future, I will be an official, and these issues must be considered. That's too dangerous." Bai Shan smiled and said, "Even in the Central Plains, there are bound to be bandits, and you may be choked when you drink water. Where is it not dangerous? Don't worry, we will bring a few more people, and there is a magical doctor called Manbao. It'll be all right." Mr. Zhuang also nodded, stroked his beard and said with a smile, "Don't worry, old lady, even an old man like me can follow me. They are all young and there will be no problem." Mrs. Lu, "Mr. Zhuang is going too. Naturally, since I'm a student studying abroad, I, a gentleman, will naturally take it with me and the western regions. He used to want to come to the western regions when he was young, but it is a pity that he dragged his family with his mouth and was shy, and finally let alone the western regions, he has never even been to the grasslands." Seeing the excitement under Mr. Zhuang's serious expression, Mrs. Lu was speechless for a while. But she did relax a little in her heart. With Mr. Zhuang following her, she was always more reliable, right? Mrs. Lu accepted her fate, but she was worried about something else. If Manbao resigns, why are they still planting wheat this year? Bai Shandao, even if the farm is not hers, the tenant farmers will have to live, so we can't delay their planting for a season because of her resignation. Besides, we don't need to give the wheat seeds this year, they are all kept by the farmers themselves. Seed. Even chicken seedlings can be self-sufficient. Since the beginning of the year, they have invested in farm tools and cattle, and the seeds are all good seeds left over from the previous year. It's a pity that they did a calculation. The expenditures in the first 2 years were too large, and they only paid back this year. Returning to the original means that they have all worked in vain for the past 3 years. Well, it doesn't count, the tenant farmers have a better life, they have gained psychological satisfaction, if that counts as a gain. Bai Shan passed the Jinchi exam, and Man Bao was thinking about resigning. So today, when I went to ask for the Ping and Mai for the crown princess, Man Bao sat on a chair and ate a roasted taro, while the little grandson sat on the wooden couch and watched her while eating the complimentary food the palace maid fed him. The double monthly pass has begun, ask for a monthly pass. Babies who want to vote for my monthly ticket, please vote for this book, Hyundai Faishan's monthly ticket list. This book is competing, let's rush to the duck. See you in the next chapter at 6 p.m. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2056. The crown princess wiped the saliva from the corner of his mouth, and she couldn't help laughing when she saw him staring at Man Bao while eating with relish. I don't know what's wrong with this child, she feeds him egg custard and meat custard by herself. Always unhappy, but watching people eat it makes him eat with relish. Man Bao said, I don't think it tastes good if I eat too much. She said, it's the same with children. They always think other people's food tastes better. Madam, your taro is so delicious. Where did you grow it? It was planted in Zishan, the soil there is not good, but the taro is very good, and His Highness likes to eat it, so Zhuangzi sent a lot of them, not only roasted, but also delicious when boiled. If you like it, I will send it to you later. I will collect a bag for you, you can take it back when you leave the palace, and you can bake it by the fire even in the palace. Man Bao said, it's not cold enough for that, and the palace didn't give out charcoal. I'll take it home and eat it. Seeing that the atmosphere was just right, Man Bao asked the crown princess carefully, Niang Niang, you said that the crown prince and I will resign, will the crown prince agree? The princess was surprised, why are you thinking of resigning? She sat up straight, frowned and asked, did someone in the palace bully you? No, no, Man Bao quickly explained, I want to go out for a study tour. Crown princess, you still use study tours? No wonder she was surprised. In her opinion, Zhou Man's medical skills are already very good. Now he is compiling medical books in Chongquen Museum. He is already at the teacher level. Man Bao said, there are still too few patients in the palace, and there are few patients that I can contact in Beijing. I want to go to a farther place to see. Man Bao did not hide his thoughts, and said, I know most of the doctors in the capital, and I have learned all the medical skills that can be learned, but those that cannot be learned, should not have been learned in recent years, so I thought of going outside for a while. Go, see more patients and doctors, and see plants that I have never seen outside, and maybe there are medicine stones suitable for medicine. Crown Princess, the capital has the most people, right? There are not enough patients here for you to see. Man Bayadao, I'm talking about diseases, there are endemic diseases in this world, that is, there will be some unique diseases in one place, and the same diseases are different in one place and another, and the medicines will be different. For example, the medicines used to treat wind cold in Beijing are different from those used in Lujiang County, and the medicines used in spring and summer and autumn and winter are also different. The crown princess listened to her blah 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 blah, and concluded that there are so many diseases in the world, she wants to go out and see. The crown princess was naturally reluctant, but she felt that she could not refuse. After 3 or 4 years of acquaintance, the crown princess still knew her. This little girl eats soft and not hard. If she is stubborn, she might be determined to leave. So she only made a sad look, but when you leave, what will your highness do here? Man Bao said, there are also Imperial Dr. Xiao and the others in the palace. Their medical skills are better than mine, and the prince can't have children in the next 2 years, right? Still filial piety, even if that's the case, he wouldn't dare to let his concubines have children. He took 10,000 steps back and said, even if he wanted to have children, he's in good health now. The body basically depends on nourishment. As long as you don't addicted to alcohol, and you don't stay up late to consume blood essence, there is basically no big problem. Crown Princess, but my child and I are used to you, and we are not used to other imperial doctors. Man Bao took the opportunity to recommend her student Lu Sunyang. She is now a medical assistant. She has learned acupuncture and moxibustion well, and her ability to diagnose pulses and prescribe prescriptions is not weak. If there is anything uncomfortable about the Empress, you can call her, and if you are seriously ill, you can ask Imperial Physician Xiao and Imperial Physician Lu. She said, it's me. In the palace, I have to ask Imperial Dr. Xiao and Imperial Dr. Lu for reference. In the end, the princess did not persuade Man Bao, but was almost persuaded by Man Bao. Because Man Bao said, I go out to see more patients and learn more medical skills. After returning to Beijing, I will also see a doctor for everyone and benefit people inside and outside the palace. People's life is so long, especially her son, who is only over a year old now, who knows what diseases he will encounter in the future. When we can't meet each other, let the doctor go to research and study, right? Therefore, having a very powerful doctor first learn a lot of skills and come back, that will be the greatest guarantee for life. Therefore, the crown princess was moved a little by her. So in the evening when the prince came to her room to play with his son, she mentioned this matter. The prince asked, where does she want to go to study? The crown princess froze for a moment and said, I forgot to ask her. The prince no longer asked, and decided to call someone to ask him the next day. As a result, the next day was a rest day, and Zhou Man left the palace early in the morning. When Wu Gonggong sent the little servant to the Changguan pavilion, the people had already left the palace. Prince. After being silent for a while, he waved his hand, let's ask when she comes back. It's not a big deal anyway. Eunuch Wu responded. When Man Bao returned home, he happily reunited with Bai Shan and Bai Erlang. The first sentence was, is there a banquet at home? Bai Shandao, Grandma wanted to do it, but she decided not to do it when she heard that we were going to study abroad, but we wanted to invite a few tables in the restaurant, let us invite some classmates and friends, and invite some relatives at home to have a meal. All right. Man Bao said, then I will also invite the students from the western regions from the Imperial Physician Office. How about we meet again? Okay. So the three went back to make a list. The Imperial Physician Office has admitted 3 students from the western regions, and Man Bao has been learning some simple western regions Mandarin with them for the past 2 years, and by the way, has learned some of the situation in the western regions, so this time I want to invite them. Since he has invited 3 students who are not particularly close, then Zheng Gu and Zheng Xiao should also bring 2. After all, they are his direct disciples, aren't they? Yin Or and Lu Huan must be invited. How are you all doing? Feng Zonping and Yi Xiang are also invited from Changguan Hall. This time Yi Xiang also passed the exam. Only he and Bai Shan were hit. Zhao Liaolang not only had a good time with them, but now he has some relatives with them, so he also invited him. Bai Shan frowned when he wrote the list, and said, in this way, others will not be invited. After all, they had a good time with Zhao Liaolang, and it's not good to invite Zhao Liaolang alone. Bai Erlang said, Wei Chen must invite Wei Chen from the Imperial College, so I thought, All the classmates from the school have been invited. Would Jihao invite him? If even Jihao wants to invite, then Peng's Hiru and Lu Xiaofo should also invite them. Because they had a better relationship with a few of them when they were in the Qiaozijian, and they, like Bai Shan and Bai Erlang, were from the same group of Anayan who entered the Qiaozijian. This is the real classmate, the relationship that can be discussed in the future. See you at 9. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2057. Bai Dalin laughed and said happily, "You now know why the grandmother wants to hold a banquet at home, right? How is it so simple to communicate with each other? And your classmates have all invited, do you want to invite them? Please. Mr. Kongwengan, do you want to invite Mr. Qiaozixiu? It doesn't matter if they come or not, it's an attitude if you invite or not," Bai Dalin said, "a person who accidentally offends people." Bai Shan had a headache, and when he finally gave the list to Mrs. Lu, he couldn't lift his head up. Who knew that Mrs. Lu just glanced at the pen and crossed out the names on it one by one, saying, "Don't be afraid of offending people, for such trivial things, you only invite people close to you to be at ease, ordinary people can understand of. Even these things have to be blamed, and that is the villain. Since it is a villain, there will be rifts even if you are close to each other, so there is no need to care about it. Bai Shandao, but our family is hosting a banquet in a restaurant." "I didn't think about it carefully," Madame Lu said, "since they are all close friends, it's fine to have a light meal at home, and then we adults won't come forward to make trouble, you can just play in the garden by yourself." Bai Shan said quickly, "This is a happy event, how can grandma and gentlemen be avoided?" Mrs. Lu smiled and said, "If we were close to our family, we should have called them together for such a happy event, but we don't have a good relationship, and it seems like we are showing off just to call them. Fortunately, your husband has been with us all the time. Living together is my own family, and we can celebrate with a good meal at home, so there is no need to invite some outsiders to accompany you in order to invite your husband." As soon as Bai Shan understood, he bowed his head and said yes. When Man Bao heard this arrangement, he went to look at the names of the people who were crossed out on the list, and said, "Wow, Grandma Lu is really amazing." Bai Dalin also felt that his cousin was powerful, and he was a little timid in comparison, so he decided to change. He rolled up his sleeves and said, "Leave me the matter of arranging the banquet. Bai Erlang, big brother, there are 2 tables, and they are all classmates and friends. As long as you are ready to eat, what else do you need to arrange?" At the Qiaozijian, except for Wei Chen, no one else was invited. At the Chongguan Pavilion, except for Yin or Lu Huan and Feng Zongping Yixiang, they also invited another Zhao Liaolang, and Tang He and his wife were also full. Bao's 2 apprentices and 3 students from the western regions. With a few of them, even 2 tables were not enough. And this is either one's own or a junior, so you don't need to say hello, okay. Bai Dalin found out that it was true, and was speechless for a while. Because they are all in a good relationship, they don't have to give a long notice in advance. On the same day, they just took their doorposts and wrote them for the next person to send, and the banquet can be held the next day. Old Zhutu was very satisfied with this, and said to Mrsgn, "That's right, it's good to eat at home, and it costs money to go out to eat. You don't know, yesterday I heard Mrs. Lu at the dinner table that she would set aside 20 taels of money." Yin Zi was shocked when he went to the restaurant to buy a banquet, and now it's ready, I can cook it at home, and I can get it for a tael of silver. It's really a tael of silver. Most of the vegetables are produced in their own villages. Xiao Qian's family also made them a few bowls of steamed meat and big meatballs. The venison and mutton bought separately are more expensive, but not much, just 2. £3 is like this, so the cost is not particularly large. Lin Lin always came down to just over 1,200 when, isn't it just a tale of silver? But this is also a very good banquet for 2 tables, and the scenery in the garden is not bad. As soon as Mrs. Tang entered the door, she went to the outer robe and Man Bao said, "You are really comfortable here, I can finally come out to breathe." Man Bao's eyes fell on her belly, and he said in surprise, "Sister-in-law, when did you get pregnant? It must be 6 months, right?" "No," Mrs. Tang smiled neatly while sitting on the chair, "it's only been more than 5 months, and I was going to invite you to come and take a look, but you've been busy lately, and I didn't make an appointment with you a few times. The other doctors have said yes, so I won't bother you anymore." Man Bao said embarrassedly, "I thought you invited me out to play." But she was very busy these days. Mrs. Tang said, "It was hard to go out to be a guest with a full stomach, but yesterday I invited a doctor, and the doctor said that he heard 2 fetal heartbeats, so." Man Bao immediately said, "I'll take a look." Madame Tang also immediately rolled up her sleeves and stretched out her hand. It was not the first time that she was pregnant. Zhou Man was in the palace when she found out, and it was not a complicated disease, so she directly asked a familiar doctor to check her pulse. She is in good health, and she doesn't even need to drink anti-abortion pills. She has always been well raised, and she only started telling her family after 3 months. Originally, things like pregnancy should not be publicized, so as not to surprise the child and the mother who sent the child, which is not good for the child. So she didn't say anything, she kept it at home, and she seldom even went out. She had always been normal, she didn't even have morning sickness, she was just a little drowsy, and this pregnancy was really comfortable. As a result, last month, her stomach started to get bigger and bigger, and it was the same for 3 or 2 days, and she continued to eat more and more. She was already pregnant with 1. She knew that pregnant women couldn't eat too much food without restraint. There was also a reminder from the mammy beside her, but she couldn't help it. She was really hungry. Now she understands Han Wuniang a little bit, she really can't control it. At that time, she and Tang He wanted to invite Zhou Man to come, but she was so busy that she didn't come after a few appointments. She originally thought that this time, Xiu Mu would directly say that she would come to see a doctor, but Bai Shan after winning the Jinchi, I invited them to come for wedding wine. As soon as Mrs. Tang and Tang He discussed it, they simply went to the door with their stomachs out. They also invited the doctor to take a look yesterday. The doctor said that they vaguely heard Shuang Mei, but they were not very sure. Man Bao listened carefully, but also felt that he was not very sure. She simply changed her hand and closed her eyes and listened carefully again, only then did she vaguely hear another fetal heartbeat. Man Bao opened his eyes and said, "It's Shuang Mei, do you want to ask Imperial Physician Xiao for help?" Madame Tang was taken aback and asked, "How do you say it? Is the child bad?" No, Man Bao was afraid that she would think too much about hurting her body, so she quickly smiled and said, "Xiao Tei has better medical skills than me, and we have a good relationship. I don't want to give you a backdoor, but to hire a doctor with better medical skills than me. Do you want to take a look?" Mrs. Tang, it makes sense, she couldn't find anything to question for a while. Mrs. Tang was relieved, but she was still a little worried, "So I am indeed a twin?" Man Bao nodded. Madame Tang was worried. Twins sound auspicious, but in fact, few people in their family want to have twins. Because twins mean danger, not only for the mother, but also for the child. A single child may be frail, not to mention twins. See you tomorrow. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2058. Madame Tang felt her stomach and thought to herself, "What's more, there is a fetal heartbeat that is not so obvious, Zhou Man needs to be very serious to hear it." Manbao is also thinking about this. One child is hard enough, let alone two children. One of the children's fetal heart rate is so weak, and I don't know if it can be preserved, and it must be preserved after birth, which is also not easy. Manbao thought about it, but did not show his face, and smiled with Mrs. Tang. I will take you to see Imperial Dr. Xiao in the afternoon. Madame Tang nodded. Manbao took her hand and said, let's go for a walk in the garden, and we'll eat in the open house in a while. When the person was sent to the garden, Manbao wrote a post to Imperial Physician Xiao, stating that he would bring a patient to visit in the afternoon. Then they were sent to the Xiao family. Zhou Liru and Lu Sunyang were also in the garden, as well as Cheng's and Manbao's 6 sisters-in-law, all 3 mothers, just sitting and talking together. Lu Huan and Bai Erlang were leaning against each other, with Wei Chen standing next to him. The 3 of them shook their heads at Bai Shan. We will be different from now on. Lu Huan said, we are in white clothes. Bai Erlang replied, he is a green robe. Wei Chen said faintly, it may be Zi in the future. Bai Shan asked, did you eat sour when you entered? No, but eat now. Yin Or stood aside and smiled at them. Bai Shan turned his head and said to him, let's go, don't you want to see peony? By the way, the peony planted in the corner of our garden is blooming. Although it's a bit ugly, the peony blooming in this weather is really rare. Would you like to go and see it? Bai Erlang asked a few friends. Everyone nodded naturally, okay. Madame Tang listened strangely and asked, there are peonies in bloom at this season in your house? Manbao nodded and said, it's not good looking, it's mutated, and the weather at this time is similar to that of the beginning of spring. It's cold, but it's not particularly cold. It may have mistaken the season, so it's blooming, it's still normal. Where is normal? One is when the spring is coming, and the other is when the cold moon is coming. Even if the temperature is similar, the others are not close, okay. Mrs. Tang felt that she was too perfunctory and asked, is that the rare flower you bought? No, Manbao was very sure of this point. If it was, she wouldn't have said it openly and let people know, she just pinched it quietly. She said, it was last year, it seems who gave it, and it's not a particularly expensive variety. My garden was short of flowers, so I planted it. As a result, it bloomed in spring this year. It's not the season, the petals are a little thin, and there's nothing wrong with it except for being ugly. Mrs. Tang, flowers are meant to be admired. They are ugly. Are there any other advantages? There are still some. The color of the petals is not bad. If you mash it, you can make the flower juice do something else. Magistrate Tang sat on the side for fear that the 2 of them would quarrel while talking, mainly because Mrs. Tang had a bad temper recently because of her pregnancy. He had been having a hard time these few days, so some of the grass and trees were all over the place, and he immediately changed the topic and said, Bai Shan passed the Jinqi examination, did you send a letter to Changbo? Manbao said, I'd be very embarrassed if I wrote a letter to talk about this. It seemed like they were showing off. But I guessed, my 4th brother and the others went to the grasslands in July. It's already more than October now, and they should have returned, so I wrote a letter yesterday to send them to Xiaohu, thinking of asking Brother Yang to help. Take care of it, if you have something, you can ask my 4th brother to bring it back. Tang He understood that this was called low-key showing off. He and Manbao looked at each other and felt that she did a good job, and added, Xiaohu used to be a grassland, and there are many cattle and horses raised there. It seems that there is a lot of fur, and it looks good. There are a lot of fox skins, and I heard that there are tiger skins. Manbao has a serious face. The friendship between gentlemen is like water, we will not accept such a generous gift from Yang Shuexian. Madame Tang, who was on the side, couldn't hold back her music and said with a smile, I heard He say that you guys want to go out to study. It's cold at this time, so I'll give you the best furs this time. Since the friendship between gentlemen is like water. Man Bao said righteously, can Shuexiang Tang be the same? He and Bai Shan are as close as brothers. This time, even Tang he couldn't hold back his music, and he pointed at her and said, you. But how do you know that we want to go on a study tour? Tang Shuexian thought for a while before saying, I heard what Vice Admiral Zhang said, wasn't Bai Shan from your family? Vice General Zhang is Yin Li's subordinate, so he should have heard it from Yin Li. Man Bao thought about it for a while. They had concealed the fact that they wanted to go out to study abroad, but they did not conceal it from Yin or. So let it go. After lunch, Yin or the others stayed to play with Bai Shan and the others, and Feng Zonping and the others also took out arrows to play pot throwing. By the way, the 3 students from the western regions who were holding Man Bao were about to ask about the second or third secrets of the Jiao royal family in the past. Not to mention, they have really heard that they were apprentices of sorcerers when they were in the western regions, and they were chosen to study medicine in the capital because of their good mana. They originally came for the curse and ban of the Imperial Physician's Office, but as a result, the Imperial Physician's Office had few curse and ban classes, but there were many other courses. Because of the language barrier, they have a hard time learning. Other students only need to study for 5 years. The students they sent from Fanbang do not have to study for 8 or 9 years. It is too difficult, it is really too difficult. Fortunately, they have memorized the acupuncture points now, and when they touched the human body, they did find a special effect in order to persevere, otherwise they would have wanted to go home. Although the royal family of Jiao was no longer there, they still respected the royal family when they mentioned it. Bai Shan and the others also restrained their attitude and did not dare to be frivolous. Although they asked about 2 or 3 secrets, they seemed very solemn. Man Bao kept them talking, and took Master Tang and Madam Tang to find Imperial Dr. Xiao. Imperial Physician Xiao also took a break and waited at home after receiving Man Bao's post. He looked at Madam Tang's pulse, glanced at Zhou Man, then stroked his beard and said with a smile to Madam Tang, yes, but since they are twins, the previous diet is not suitable, and the children's nutrition cannot keep up. I'll give you a meal list, and I will discuss with Zhou Tai and give you a prescription that won't hurt your health. How about making up the child first? Madam Tang said worriedly, will the child be too big if you take the tonic? Imperial Physician Xiao smiled and said, no, with Imperial Physician Zhou here, she can touch the fetus, and I can change the recipe at any time. Now the child is a little malnourished. Madam Tang breathed a sigh of relief and smiled. So Imperial Physician Xiao got up with a smile and went to discuss the prescription with Zhou Man. After Imperial Dr. Xiao went out for a while, MRS Xiao brought her daughter-in-law and daughter to see MRS Tang, and everyone talked about the child in a lively manner. Master Tang took the opportunity to slip out. See you at 6 p.m. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Zhu. Chapter 2059. Dr. Xiao and Man Bao were waiting for him in the side room. In fact, before he came, Dr. Xiao had already told Man Bao, one of the fetuses is not very good, and the fetal heart rate is very weak. Man Bao nodded, yes, I have to be serious to hear it, but it's only 5 months, and there is still a chance to raise it back. Imperial Physician Xiao was worried, I'm afraid that it will be difficult to give birth. Man Bao was also afraid. She lowered her eyes and thought for a while, then said, let's do it step by step, try to protect it first, if it doesn't work, you can only reduce the pregnancy. It's already May. At this time, the reduction of the fetus has a great impact on the mother's body and the other fetus, Xiao Tai objected. Now, we can only move forward. But when Master Tang came, Imperial Physician Xiao still smiled, comforted him first, and then told him the truth. In short, this tire is very dangerous, let him be mentally prepared. Master Tang did not expect such a result. He clenched his fists and thought for a while before asking with difficulty, what if both children were killed? This is to make up your mind to stay big. Imperial physician Xiao paused and said, although it does great harm to the mother and is also dangerous, it is better than during childbirth. Man Bao said, I have to ask Mrs. Tang about this. Will she agree? Master Tang was discouraged and said after a while, I'll try to ask. The result of trying to ask is that Master Tang went to the court meeting with blue cheeks the next day. Man Bao was sitting next to him, seeing the green patch on his cheek, and silently didn't speak. But after the court meeting, Lord Tang still looked for her. Your sister-in-law doesn't agree, so you will have to worry about my family in the future. Man Bao said that there was no problem, and then pointed him, you can prepare a stable mother at home now, or you can have a mother who knows some production to serve you. I will write down the precautions for you later, and you can take it back and teach you. Mother Wen and Mammy. She said, I can only leave the palace once every 8 days. In her current situation, it is enough to check once every half a month, but if you are worried, it's okay to check every 2 days. Man Bao taught him how to measure his belly circumference. Experienced mother Wen can tell whether the fetal position is correct or not. This is something you need to see all the time. If the fetal position is not correct, you must adjust it slowly from now on. Master Tang listened very seriously, and talked to Man Bao for a long time beside the stone lion in front of the Taiji Hall. Some officials passing by felt that their muttering was not right, so they deliberately pretended to pass by and heard Man Bao say, don't be too nervous, my sister-in-law is in good health, this is not the first child, it's just a little problem, when we encounter problems, we will solve them. Passing officials. So it was only afternoon, and the officials in the entire imperial city knew that Tang He was going to be a father again, because he was too worried that his wife went to find Zhou Man from the Taiji hospital and dragged someone to speak in front of the Taiji hall for nearly half an hour. Even the emperor, who was devoted to the affairs of the state, knew about it, so when he held a small meeting with the ministers in the afternoon, he smiled and congratulated old Master Tang. Tang Qing is going to be a grandfather again. Old Master Tang. He was congratulated this morning. He could only squeeze out a smile to express his gratitude. The royal family was still filial piety, so he couldn't go back with joy. The other adults couldn't help lowering their heads and laughing, waiting for them to go home, but the female relatives in the family also knew about it for a long time. It's a pity that Mrs. Tang raised the baby behind closed doors, and many posts were rejected, so they couldn't even make fun of them. But everyone still couldn't help expressing admiration for her in private. After all, there are so many officials and family members in Beijing, and there are very few who can love like her and Master Tang. Tang He doesn't even have a concubine. That's why family style is very important. Look at old Master Tang's relationship with his wife, and then see how Master Tang treats Mrs. Tang. In the future, young Master Tang will definitely be in demand. Our 2 little girls are 6 years old this year, and they are about the same age. As a result, many people in Beijing wanted to be the in-laws of Master Tang, and even Man Bao in the palace knew about it. She is no longer in the palace alone. Bai Shan and the others have re-entered the palace to accompany him. Even if he passed the examination, he would not be able to choose an official immediately. He said, the examination for the Ministry of Rites is scheduled for the 12th lunar month, and the examination for the Ministry of Personnel is scheduled for next year. After the Mingjing subject examination, the 2 subjects will be combined. The imperial examinations of Mingjing and other subjects are usually held in the first month, and the list is published in February, followed by the examination of the Ministry of Rites, and then the examination of the Ministry of Personnel, and then the selection of officials can be waited for. Because the Jinshi subject is the most difficult, it is held in October alone every year. After some operations, The final examination of the personnel department is held together with other subjects. This is the norm. Bai Shan took out a letter to her. It's for you at No 2. When Man Bao heard this, he was so surprised. Why did you give me the letter? She opened the envelope, but took out a thin piece of gold. Although it was only a piece of gold, it still attracted the attention of everyone in the cafeteria. Feng Zongping sat down from the next table with a bowl in his hand, looked carefully at the gold flakes in her hand and said, "There should be half a tael, what have you done?" Man Bao was also thinking about what she had done. Bai Shan didn't even think that there was a piece of gold inside. He took the envelope and poured it down, only to find that there was only a piece of gold inside, and there was nothing left. He looked at Man Bao silently for a while, and finally pulled her to avoid everyone and went out and whispered, "Ping Bang Second wants you to help him treat the acne on his face. I thought he would write a letter to explain the situation, but I didn't expect that he didn't write it, but gave the money directly." When Man Bao heard it, he put the gold piece in his arms with confidence, and said, "I noticed it when I was reading the list, but I still have to face it and feel my pulse to see what the situation is before I can prescribe medicine." Bai Shan said, "He is very anxious now, can he ask for a pulse outside, give you the pulse, and then you prescribe medicine for him?" Man Bao wondered, why is he in such a hurry? I think he already has a beard, so he should have gotten married, right? Are you still in a hurry to say kiss? No, Bai Shan said in a hard-to-find way, in more than a month, the rights exam will be taken. There are only 2 exams, speech and appearance. He is afraid that he will be brushed off because of his face. Man Bao was surprised, isn't it? As for it, Bai Shan said, it's not like this has happened before. Although I can apply for the exam in the future, it's not good to hear it, so he hopes that the acne on his face will heal before the rights exam. Man Bao rubbed his chin in thought, I'm not sure, but you can ask his wife about this kind of thing, and you'll just need to apply powder. That being said, it is still necessary to treat when it should be treated. Man Bao agreed here, and received the second-ranked pulse case the next day. Man Bao looked at Bai Shan suspiciously, did you ask Mr. to send you a message? No, Bai Shan said, how could I let my husband do such a thing? I asked Sunyang to help pass it on. Man Bao. Lu Sunyang was her apprentice, why didn't she give it to her directly, but turned her hand to Bai Shan first? Naturally, it was because Bai Shan was looking for second place on the list. See you at 9. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2060. Man Bao looked at his pulse case, carefully recalled the second-ranked face he had seen that day, and gave him a prescription after deliberation, and wrote down the doctor's order by the way. He also found a bottle of ointment for him, let's adjust the inside and outside together. I didn't look that serious that day from a distance, and the speed should be faster with a light diet. Man Bao was quietly earning extra money in the palace, and it was not until he took a rest that he had time to leave the palace to formally meet the second place in the ranking, and then go to check on Mrs. Tang. The medical business was in full swing. When she did these things, she took her apprentice and nephew Lu Sunyang with her, and also wanted her to experience it and gain a reputation. The pimples on his face are not particularly serious. According to him, when he is nervous, he tends to get pimples when he takes the exam. This Jinchi exam is so big, so he has the most pimples in his life. Originally, he wanted to find a medical center outside to see a doctor, but it turned out that the medicine he took for 20 days was of no use, and instead he grew a few more. He couldn't help it, because his wife said that there is a kind of whitening cream and acne cream in Beijing that is very good, which is from Zhou's family. I heard that the chef of Zhuji restaurant used to have acne on his face, but now it's smooth and nothing. They found out that the chef of Zhuji restaurant was Zhou Man's sixth brother, and all the whitening creams and acne creams were made by Zhou Man's sister-in-law and niece. Only then did he take advantage of the opportunity to have dinner with his colleagues and talk to Bai Shan, and found Zhou Man. Not to mention, he felt much better just after taking the medicine according to her prescription for 7 days, because the acne on his face was not so red and bright. Even he felt better, let alone his wife. Therefore, when I officially saw Zhou Man, Ping Ping II was very enthusiastic and wanted to invite her and Bai Shan to dinner. The two of them were about to answer when suddenly the door was knocked on. She was in a hurry, so anxious that Man Bao felt déjà vu. She stood up and said, "Let's go and see who is knocking on the door." Man Bao had already hurried out, and Bai Shan also felt that the knock on the door was familiar. Even if it was not in his own house, he would have hurried out. Ping Bang's eyes flashed, and he immediately got up and followed out. The door opened, and Daji, who was waiting outside with his horse, immediately said, "Miss Man, there is a call in the palace." Manbao didn't ask anything in front of the second-ranked man, nodded to him and said, "The second-ranked man, today is unfortunate, we will eat it another day." Ping Ping number 2 quickly nodded and said with a smile, "Zhou Tai's doctor is busy, then go first, brother Bai." Bai Shan has also taken over another horse from Daji and said with a smile, "It doesn't matter, let's go home first." They came today in the guard's carriage. Man Bao asked Lu Sunyang to go back in the carriage. She quickly went home with Bai Shan. She didn't care about riding a horse on the street, so she quickly returned to Zhou's house. The one who was waiting at Zhou's house was not a servant, but a medical assistant in the palace. When Man Bao saw it, he breathed a sigh of relief, jumped off his horse and asked, "Is there something wrong with the imperial physician's office or the imperial hospital?" In the imperial hospital, imperial physician Lu urgently summoned people and asked all the imperial physicians to return to the palace. Man Bao nodded in response, turned his head and said to Bai Shan, "I've entered the palace." She got on the carriage that came to pick up people from the palace and asked the medical assistant, "What happened?" "I don't know either. It's just that Imperial Physician Lu received an urgent report from Shangsha province." The medical assistant paused and said, "I don't know where there is an epidemic. It's winter now, how can there be epidemics? There are epidemics in all seasons, but it still likes spring and summer the most, and epidemics may also occur in early autumn, but generally in winter." Man Bao was startled and asked, "Could it be the wind chill?" The medical assistant looked at her innocently, he didn't know. Man Bao could only hold back the advanced palace. And before Bai Shan turned around, Mr. Zhuang called him with a heavy expression, and said, "Master Yang from Xias who has sent you a letter, come and have a look." Isn't it normal for Yang Hesha to send letters? Why is Mr. Zhuang's face so dark? Bai Shan hurriedly followed into the mansion, chasing after him and asking, "Sir, did something happen to Xias Hu?" Mr. Zhuang nodded slightly and said, "It's not the servants of the Yang family who came from Xias Hu, but the soldiers guarding the post outside the city." He said, "There was a smallpox in Xias Hu." Bai Shan's pupils shrank, and his breathing was 2 minutes short. He quickened his pace and went to the study. Bai Erlang had already torn down the thick envelope. The secret letter was also shown. They were all put together anyway, and although he raised his head to write to Man Bao, he definitely didn't want to avoid them. As soon as he saw Mr. Zhuang and Bai Shan come in, he immediately jumped up with the letter in his hand, Shuexiang's letter, Xias Hu Wu Wu. Bai Dalan, who glanced at the letter, also turned pale, but quickly covered Bai Erlang's mouth. Mr. Zhuang took the letter from Bai Erlang and said slowly, "What are you impatient with? Can't you speak slowly if you have something to say?" Bai Dalan calmed down when he heard Mr. Zhuang's words, and Bai Erlang also calmed down, pulled his eldest brother's hand off, and stared at the two of them with bright eyes. Bai Shan took the folded letter paper and found that it was written for the three of them, Mostly congratulations and thanks. When they wrote to him some time ago, they sent some souvenirs from the capital to him. He directly pressed the letter and turned to look at what Mr. Zhuang was holding. It was a letter to Man Bao. Mr. Zhuang looked at it at a glance, and after reading one, he handed it to Bai Shan, who immediately took it and looked at it. Yang Heshu wrote to Zhou Man to ask for advice, to be precise, to ask for help. Xiaohu has smallpox, and the number of people found is not very large. He basically controlled the people who are sick now, but he can't set the living people on fire, right? So now he can only control people, but there is no way to control the disease. The doctors in Xiaohu are not as good as those in the capital, let alone those in the palace, so he asked Zhou Mank what recipes to cure smallpox. It would be even better if the Thai hospital could send someone to Xiaohu. Bai Shan also read it at a glance. Later, he also briefly wrote how smallpox was discovered in Xiaohu. Seeing some of the names of people and places, Bai Shan felt bad. No, the disease actually started from the north of the city. Yes, can senior brother Yang control everyone? At this time, the palace was also discussing this issue. Because of Yang Heshu's urgent documents, important officials of the three provinces were all called to a meeting. Because it was related to the epidemic, the Taiyuan hospital was also present. Imperial physician Lu took Imperial physician Xiao and Man Bao along. The reason for taking Imperial physician Xiao is naturally because he has been in the hospital for many years, and he has no medical skills or prestige. I brought Zhou Man because she was good at eloquence and she was compiling, so the hospital wouldn't suffer too much from a quarrel. So everyone sat down. Yin Li said first. Master Yang said that some people in the governor's mansion of Xiaohu also suffered from smallpox. When he blocked the city gate and the governor's mansion, the eldest son of the bull's governor was no longer in the mansion, so he suggested that the capital stop all the people coming from the north. Cut off smallpox from entering Beijing. See you tomorrow. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2061. It's now the 29th of October, and the new year will come in 1 month. It's the time when all kinds of merchants finally enter Beijing. At this time, people are intercepted. How many people's way home will be cut off? Some people objected, Your Majesty, the capital of 1 million people, once the smallpox enters the capital, the consequences will be unimaginable. The three Thai hospitals sitting on the sidelines nodded again and again. It would be too terrifying. When the time comes, the people from their Thai hospital will definitely rush to the front. Will they die? Not only the capital, but also Yanzhou, Qingzhou, Longzhou, Yuzhou, and Yangzhou from Xiaohu to the south must be on guard. It's better to cut off the way out of Xiaohu. Didn't Yang Heshu block Xiaohu? It's a pity that he won Xiaohu for a short time. Before that, someone should have come out of the city. It's better to order the states to find someone and isolate them nearby. Everyone looked at the emperor here, hoping that he would have an idea. The emperor pondered for a while and said, Let's do it like this, recruit doctors from all over the world to treat smallpox patients nearby. After saying that, he looked at Imperial physician Lu and others. You have to ask the imperial physician for how to prevent and treat smallpox. Imperial physician Lu responded immediately, and then said, Your Majesty, all states need to prepare medicinal materials for the treatment of smallpox. I am afraid that there are not enough medicinal materials in Xiaohu. The emperor said solemnly, Hubu. Lu Shangshu responded, but it was rare that he did not call out poor, but only said that he would try his best to prepare the medicinal materials and send them to Xiaohu as soon as possible. Then the next thing is to talk about the candidates to go to Xiaohu. Yang Heshu's urgent documents came not only to prepare the capital, but also to ask the court for medicine. This person is naturally a doctor. So everyone looked at the Thai hospital in unison. Before coming, Imperial physician Lu and the others had discussed briefly, and Man Bao volunteered to go, but Imperial Physician Lu definitely couldn't let her go alone, so he said, Imperial Physician Zhou and Imperial Physician Lu and Physician Zheng Zheng. Everyone's eyes on the Imperial Hospital were wrong, and it was okay for Imperial Dr. Lu and Imperial Dr. Zheng. Zhou Manchu was so young, it was a life-threatening job, and it was dangerous. The hospital is too unkind. Imperial Physician Lu ignored their gazes. He didn't intend to send Zhou Man there, but he still said that, she was too young, it would be a pity, and she never had acne. Imperial Physician Lu has suffered from acne, and he has a secret recipe for treating smallpox in his hand. There is no danger in going, only credit. But when she was in the Imperial Hospital, she strongly recommended herself, and even asked him to whisper, my fourth brother and the others should be in Xiaoshu City now, and I also asked Imperial Dr. Lu to complete it. I was worried about my family. Imperial Physician Lu knew it, so she agreed. This is the internal affairs of the Thai hospital. Although I am dissatisfied, the bosses have no intention of intervening, so the matter is settled. The emperor said, the Ministry of Household collects medicinal materials as soon as possible, and the Taiyuan hospital will set off when it is ready. Be on guard in all directions. Everyone got up and got down, and then backed off. Lu Shangshu took the people from Rentai Hospital to another place to discuss the departure time. Lu Shangshu said, you give me the medicine list. I will try my best to prepare the medicinal materials within 2 days. The imperial doctor who traveled these 2 days also happened to say goodbye to his family. Dr. Lu responded in their place, and went back with Dr. Xiao Zhou Man to prepare the medicine list. Man Bao urged him, in addition to the medicinal materials that will be used to reduce fever and acne, we also prepare some medicinal materials to prevent and treat wind cold. So 3 prescriptions were given in a row, and the dosage depends on whether the hearts of Imperial Physician Lu and Imperial Physician Xiao are ruthless enough. The 2 Imperial physicians thought, Xiaoshu is now in a time of ice and snow, and it will definitely be difficult if there is an epidemic. The medicinal materials in the city are precious, and maybe there will be a cold, and if it is serious, it will turn into an epidemic. So they added all the herbs on her prescription, and they also added a few herbs that might be used. So before the evening, the Ministry of Household received a long list of medicines. When Lu Shangshu saw the names of the medicinal materials and the required amount of medicine, he could not help but slap his face, and he asked, have Imperial Physician Zheng, Imperial Physician Lu and Zhou Man left the palace? Not yet. The imperial physicians and medical assistants in their imperial hospital were still in a meeting when Xiaoguan came from the imperial hospital. Lu Shangshu nodded, took the medicine list and summoned the Zhou Shilang, and said to him, now go and ask the shopkeepers of a few pharmacies, and bring the staff who often buy them for the imperial hospital to see how many pharmacies are still in the capital. Now, the medicines on the list are tripled and bought. Zhou Shilang was surprised. Why so much? He thought it would be enough to buy twice as much. Lu Shangshu said meaningfully, I'm afraid the situation in Xiaoshu is not good. Although Yang Heshu didn't say it clearly, he should have reported the epidemic to the history of Xiaoshu before, but there has been no news from the capital. The next time he directly united with the defenders of Xiaoshu to take the governor's mansion. He is the son of everyone, and if he can force him to make this move, the situation on the Xiaoshu side will definitely be bad. So buy more, you will still need it in Xiaoshu in the future, not to mention, Lu Shangshu lowered his voice and said, maybe it will be used here in the capital. The smallpox starts from the north of the city, and the people living in the north of Xiaoshu are all its an official and an eunuch, and no one knows how many people came out before the closure of the city. And now has anyone come to the capital? Lu Shangshu said, when you go back, I remind you to go home and don't go out if you have nothing to do. Zhou Shilang was startled and understood. He took the order and wanted to go down, and Lu Shangshu warned again, it's best to sign the order tonight, and get the medicinal materials tomorrow. Those medicinal herb merchants and pharmacies are very clever, just like smelly cats, don't let them, the price has gone up. Zhou Shilang responded and hurriedly found someone to go out of the imperial city. And Manbao and the others were still having a meeting in the Thai hospital. How to prevent and control smallpox should always be unified, and how to organize manpower and various allocations should also be briefly discussed. When they were all settled, Imperial Physician Lu and Imperial Physician Xiao left Imperial Physician Lu to talk, while Manbao and the others took the things and left the palace. Imperial Dr. Zheng took 2 steps to catch up with Manbao, and whispered, "It should be because of the prescription in Imperial Dr. Lu's hand. Imperial Dr. Zhou, do you have any clues about the treatment of smallpox?" Manbao shook her head, so she was in a hurry to go back. She didn't have time all day today. She has to go back to Teacher Mo now. He should have a solution. Imperial Dr. Zheng became worried. He had also learned to prevent and treat smallpox, and the Zheng family also had a collection of related recipes, but the effects were mediocre. He has never had acne. Thinking of this, he looked at Zhou Man. Isn't Imperial Physician Zhou ever having acne? Manbao nodded sadly. She knew that getting pimples was dangerous, but she had never had pimples before. Keek said before that she was lucky, otherwise she would have to buy vaccines. That's right, vaccines. See you at 6 p.m.